somebody who has political aspirations. He will now, not for the first time, be meeting President Reagan as part of the victory celebration.
Then we go up in the announcer's booth, and there's the president.
And now here in what for today has become the winner's circle, I am with the guest of honor, President Ronald Reagan, and the honored man of the day who has won his 200th Grand National Stock Car race, Richard Petty. Mr. President, it's great to have you here. A member of your staff intimated to me yesterday that although you are interested in the fortunes of all race drivers, you might be excited to see this occasion, Richard Petty winning his 200th. It's quite a day, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is. I understand that no one in the whole history of racing has ever done that, or ever won 200 races.
And you called 4 or 5 laps on the radio. How'd you think your race call went?
Not very good. I'm glad that when I was a sports announcer, it was mainly baseball and football and a few things like swimming and that sort of thing, because I was having an awful lot of laps after I got here when I was trying to figure out who was where.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome NASCAR Nextel Cup Series Championship driver, Mr. Bill Elliott.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the most famous words in racing, the President of the United States.
Thank you, Bill. Laura and I are honored to be here for this fantastic spectacle. We asked God's blessings on the drivers, NASCAR fans, and on our great nation. Now it is my honor to start this race. Gentlemen, start your engines.
You know, one of the things I love about NASCAR is not only they're these great athletes, but they're socially minded folks. And Chandra and Jimmy and I met several times, one time at a place where the folks at NASCAR are putting something back into the community to help the less fortunate. And this case happened to be in a place called Victory Junction in North Carolina, and it was a fabulous experience. And I want to thank you all very much for taking your fame and lending it to help somebody in need. It's really what makes America a great place. And your leaders on the track and leaders off the track. Thank you very much.
Oh, look at this.
It's a real thing, too.
Man, that is a spiffy looking car.
It's, they've changed in appearance over the last few years. NASCAR's worked real hard to make them a lot safer.
So tell me from soup to nuts, from start to finish, how do you guys start building one of these?
You start under the hood. You have all the tubular chassis and everything that's under there. So there are specs anymore for everything. You can tell I don't do this often.
Yeah, right. I can tell you need a pit crew, man.
Yeah. So there's specs for the weight of the vehicle, the tubing, a lot of the safety stuff that's around it. But you build the chassis, then the body is all, except for the nose and the trunk, is made of fiberglass that's provided by the manufacturer. But in here's where the real magic has happened lately. These seats are made of carbon fiber, and we've been through some real extensive testing to control the body in an impact and the head.
Right.
This is a mold that's made of my body, and what's comfortable for me contains my head, and we also have a Hans device that goes around the neck.
Now, you got a whole bunch of stuff on. This does not look like my dashboard, guys. It looks a little different.
It's, so over here's the main power switch.
Right.
And then the 2 battery switches here. So we've got 2 systems of everything in the car, from radio boxes, ignition boxes, and battery circuits as well. Right. It's hard to see in here now, but there's a series of 5 lights, and as the RPM gets close to the limit, you kind of use the gas and brake to maintain that speed for pit road.
How much are you talking to your pit crew the whole time?
My job, there's no telemetry on the vehicle. A lot of other forms of racing, they have active telemetry where you can see what's going on. So I have to be the computer. Every 5 to 10 laps, I explain where I'm having trouble with the car, so they can keep working on adjustments and combinations of things, from tire pressures, adjusting weight and springs and things.
So you're just making a whole series of calculations constantly, even as you're driving. Yeah. It's like, okay, I feel like left tire's a little off for this or that.
Truthfully, you feel like you're complaining all the time because all you're doing is telling them what it's doing wrong. So at the end of the day, when you see each other, you feel bad almost to a certain degree. You're like, man, I've just been complaining all day long to you about this vehicle, and we won, or we had a good day. So.
All right, now tell the truth. Do you get tickets?
I haven't had one.
You've never had a speeding ticket? Is that because the cops, when they pull you over,
No,
they say, hey,
no.
Jimmy Johnson?
No.
And then they start talking to you about racing?
I think I'm a good spokesperson for this. I'm able to get out my aggression on the track and keep it off the streets. I'm not pulling your leg. Now I say that and I'll go get a ticket tonight on my way home. You want to start it up?
Come on, let's do that.
I'll make sure we get some throttle to it.
He does that smooth, right? Even in a suit, he's got no problems with it.
All right.
All right. What I'm talking about. That's unbelievable. That's an engine there, huh? When you're on a straightaway, how fast are you going?
Depends on the track, but the fastest track would be about 210 on the straightaway.
Now, is there any point where you just go, man, I'm going too fast here?
Right when something goes wrong, you think, you know what? Why did I put myself in this situation? That's when it really hits you.
You need any help?
There we go.
Full disclosure, I invited Tony here today because of what he did on the track, but I was also hoping he would give me some tips on the media because he's got that quiet, reserved personality. And I figured I'd stay out of trouble if Tony gave me some advice on that. It's good to see number 14 on the South Lawn. Every year I try to take a lap. Nobody lets me do it. But I'm still holding out hope that at some point I'm going to be able to get behind the wheel. A few years ago, Jimmy Johnson showed up and showed me how to start one of these cars up, explained how everything worked. It was impressive, but what was even more impressive is he got in and got out dressed like he is now, and he did not rip his suit, which took some skill. And I do want to acknowledge Jimmy because even though his 5-year streak is over, I think we can all acknowledge he is one of the all-time greats, and I know he is itching to take the title back. So congratulations, Jimmy, on everything that you've done. But this was Tony's year, and Smoke gave us one of the most dramatic finishes that we have ever seen. After barely making the chase, Tony took off, winning an amazing 4 races in the postseason. And then came the final race in Miami, a must-win. Tony went all out. Twice he came from back of the pack, passing 118 cars, sometimes 3 wide. Tony said it felt like he passed half the state of Florida. But in the end, he hung on to take the checkered flag and win the championship with a tiebreaker. And Tony himself acknowledged he didn't see it coming. Nobody saw it coming. We've all heard about athletes who say they're going to do what it takes to win it all. But back in August, with the season winding down, Tony predicted he wouldn't be able to pull it off. In fact, he said that if he did end up winning the championship, this is a quote, I'll declare I'm a total bumbling idiot. Here's your chance, Tony. But I think Tony's hero, the great A.J. Foyt, put it best when he said, the reason Tony won was because he drove the best race of his life, period. And he did it with the rest of these drivers on his tail. I want to make special mention out of this outstanding group of Carl Edwards. He's also a member of my fitness council. Carl battled Tony. Now, folks, I was just talking to Brad on the way out. People who've known Brad a long time aren't surprised, I gather, that he's up here because he practically grew up on a racetrack with his dad and his uncle, tinkering on cars, working the crew for their family-owned race team before he got behind the wheel. He had it in his blood from the beginning. His racer's mentality, his commitment to the team, and his belief that you've always got to keep pushing to be your best. That's why he started the Race to Recovery program through his Checkered Flag Foundation. Race to Recovery recognizes wounded warriors who've worked hard through intense rehabilitation to come back from their injuries. And those brave warriors get to head down to the track for a VIP experience and a chance to ride shotgun with Brad. Because for Brad, our veterans are an important part of his team. Again, I'm going to quote him. I couldn't do what I do on the racetrack without these men and women making the sacrifices that they do for me. So, Brad, I want to thank you for visiting with some of our wounded warriors. later this afternoon. And I want to thank you, as well as the chairman and CEO of NASCAR, Brian France, who's here, for not only being present at this celebration, but your long tradition of honoring our troops and our veterans. We very much appreciate it. So none of us could do what we do without the men and women who sacrifice for us every single day, our troops, our veterans, and as we were reminded yesterday, once again, the first responders and National Guardsmen who run towards trouble without regard for their own safety so they can look out for ours. I want to thank all of them, all our men and women in uniform who keep us safe. But most of all, we're here today to congratulate Brad and his whole team. Best of luck as you gear up for this year's chase. I was just telling them I was getting tired of seeing Johnson all the time, and I understand that now Brad and Jimmy are going at it again. So I know that this is going to be a competitive race, a competitive sprint this year as well. And I know that all the drivers in NASCAR bring great joy to their fans, great competitive spirit to what they do every single day. It is a unique American sport, and we are so proud to support it. So, Brad, congratulations. Great job.
Appreciate it, sir.
Now I'm going to take a look at this spiffy car. Brad offered to let me drive it around the South Lawn, but Secret Service once again said no. Now, everybody knows I'm a Chicago guy, and usually when we do these sports events, I make some crack about how the football team's not as good as the '85 Bears, or the basketball team's not as good as the Bulls. But today I can't really say anything because Jimmy Johnson's pretty much the Michael Jordan of NASCAR. Like Mike, Jimmy has won 6 championships in 8 years. He won a few titles, took a 2-year break, decided, you know what, it's not that interesting, and then got back to winning again. And now opposing drivers are saying things like, unfortunately, we're driving during the Jimmy Johnson era. He's the best there ever was. So these days we've got a lot of kids all across the country who want to be like Jimmy, and why shouldn't they? He's the only driver to make the chase all 10 years it's been in existence. He won his 6-pack faster than anybody in NASCAR history. This season he's chasing his 7th title, which would tie him with Dale Earnhardt and the King, Richard Petty, for the most ever. And as Chad once said, he can do things with a race car that most mortals cannot. And Chad should know, because he's been Jimmy's crew chief for 13 years. And while sometimes the two might sound like an old married couple, sniping at each other over the radio, Jimmy knows that without Chad and Rick and the entire team at Hendrick Motorsports, he'd be just another mortal making left turns. And that's why Jimmy brought along the over-the-wall guys from his pit crew to share in today's celebration. As the season started, Kevin had a new team, a new crew chief to adjust to. It usually takes a little time for a driver and a crew chief to find their groove, but Kevin and Rodney seem to figure out each other in a hurry. Sort of like when Joe Biden joined my team. So they had instant chemistry. And as Kevin can tell you, when you have a trusted partner shouting world-class advice into your ear at every turn, you can't lose. It wasn't long before Kevin and Rodney and the team behind Budweiser Chevy were firing on all cylinders, but the season was not without its ups and downs. By the second race in the season, Kevin had picked up his first checkered flag with Stewart Haas, and then came a tough stretch, the kind where most champion seasons are forged. There were blown tires, engine failures, cut oil lines, a slew of obstacles that held the 4-car from finishing any higher than 36th in 3 out of 4 straight races. But Kevin and Rodney stuck with it, and by the time the chase rolled around, this team was ready. A win at Homestead capped a season where Kevin picked up 5 wins, led more laps than anybody on the grid, picking up his first Sprint Cup championship. And by the looks of it, with 2 quick wins and the points lead already in place, 2015 isn't shaping up to be too much different. Kevin's also found the time to match his contributions on the track with his commitment to family and community away from racing. His wife, Delana, and his son, Keelan, are constant presences on the track. And I know at one point, Delana even had her own fire suit. I'm sure it looked better than it did on Kevin. And I'm sure that if Michelle decided we were going to start wearing matching outfits, it would be me who adapted to her style. Now, as you may be aware, I host a lot of teams from other sports. They all call themselves national champions or world champions. But I've got to hand it to the number 18 team, who have given themselves the title of Galaxy Champs. That's a first. And I've put in a call to NASA to check to see whether this is in fact accurate. Kyle, I hear your ride is outside. Most years when NASCAR comes to town, I make a joke about looking at the car full of longing and feeling kind of wistful and trying to get Secret Service to let me take a spin. But this year is different. In a few months, I can actually do anything I want. So, Kyle, we're going to talk.
You got it.
I'm not sure, though, Michelle's going to let me drive with a car with a whole bunch of M&Ms on them. She may want carrots or something. Actually, we have White House M&Ms here, so those of you who've sampled them, they are good old-fashioned M&Ms. Now, it's 2016. I think there were some people who thought we were going to see a Bush back here in the White House this year, but they didn't know it was going to be Kyle. Especially after he broke his leg and his foot at Daytona and missed the first 3 months of the season. But he hunkered down, displaying the same determination in rehab that he's known for on the track. He'll be the first to say he could not have done it alone. Obviously, from Samantha's support to everyone on the number 18 team who held things together while he got better, the people in Kyle's life kept him driving forward. It helps, by the way, being young. I just want to point out, you know, you heal a little faster. When you're 55, things don't happen that quick.
Some of the NASCAR folks came over here today because guess what? They are endorsing Donald Trump. Can you believe this? Can you believe this? You know, I'll tell you what. If the people that like and watch NASCAR vote for Donald Trump, they can cancel the election right now. Nobody can win. Nobody. Nobody can win. So what I want to do, I'll bring them up individually, but these are incredible. First of all, the owner, the whole deal, the big guy, Brian France. Brian, come on up here. Come on up. He's getting pretty dapper, you know? Used to be on the beaches of Daytona. Look at him. Brian, we love you. You want to say a few words, Brian, before we bring the guys?
Well, I'll just real quick. I've known Donald for over 20 years, and I'm going to tell you one thing about him. You know about his winning in business and success. I'm here to tell you he wins with his family. He does. He does. And I'll tell you one thing. If you leave on one other thing, any of his children, you'd be proud to have them as part of your family. That's how I judge a winner, how somebody manages their family, raises their family. That's how I judge a family.
All right, so we have some of the great drivers. One of the great drivers of the world in history, the legendary Bill Elliott. Come on, Bill. We love Bill. Bill.
I don't know what to say. I mean, I've known him just a little bit, but for what he can do, I think for our country, I'm all for it. I mean, we need a change, guys. That's all there is to it. And I think this is the man for the job.
Oh, do these guys have guts? I could not press it. I'm telling you. You know, I want to go about 60. That's enough, right? For most of us. So we have Ryan Newman. Great. Ryan. Come on up here, Ryan. We have David. Do you know who I'm going to say? David Lee Regan. David, come in. Come in. And then, because of genes, he was really helped a lot. You know, Bill and his incredible wife had a son. And the son, you got it. And the son, I don't know, are you going to be upset if he turns out greater than you, Bill, or are you going to be happy? He's going to be thrilled. That's a good father. That's a good father. I know a lot of fathers that have a son that becomes successful, they're not happy. That's a great father. And most fathers are that way. Chase Elliott, the hottest young driver in the world.
I'm not sure why he let me say anything. Just happy to be here. This is a great man. I think he's a guy who can do some great things for us. So thank you. Thanks for having us.